this is Bobby Rempe from Cleveland, Ohio, and you're listening to BBQ Central.
Yay! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh, should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Good evening, and welcome to the Really Big BBQ Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling, originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city of Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I am your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you right here on your Tuesday evening for your live fire fun and frivolity show. That's what we're calling it, the live fire fun and frivolity show. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, t-shirts are in the making. They will be very expensive. They will be very unique collector's items, if you will, the fun and frivolity show t-shirts. So be on the lookout for those. If you want to jump in on the show this evening, love to have you. Here's how you do that.
You can get in touch with the show by calling 216-220-0966. Email Greg at the BBQCentralShow.com. On the Twitter and Instagrams at BBQ Central Show.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you get the newsletter coming up in about 12 to 13 minutes from now. It's the second Tuesday of the month, which, you know, if you're a fan of the show, brings a visit from the creator of AmazingRibs.com, Meathead. However, if you joined me last week during the first Tuesday of the month, you would know that October is special because I am taking my show regulars or recurring guests or whatever you want to call them and doing what I'm terming the origin stories of all of them. So, for instance, last week, if you're just new to the show, you're just finding it here on the 13th of October, I had a origin story in the first hour last week with Malcolm Reed from How to Barbecue Right. And in the second hour, I had one with Sam, the cooking guy, who's my second hour regular Tuesday guest on the first Tuesday of the month. That was really convoluted as I was saying it out loud. And the concept or the idea here is, I would say on the whole, if you're somewhat knowledgeable about the industry, you can find some rudimentary information. Meathead's got a really big bio on AmazingRibs.com that he wrote. I don't think anybody else on the show, maybe Steven Reichland does, but nobody has quite the extensive bio like Meathead has on AmazingRibs.com. So I wanted to put together a piece that is within this time frame that we're in now, that you can go back and reference, or perhaps I can go back and reference them for you if you shoot me an email and go, hey, I would really love to know more about Malcolm or Steven Reichland or Robin Lindars or the embedded correspondence. Well, now I will have a point in time that I can go back and say, hey, this is all current. We did a deep dive back from when they were born all the way to present day, and here's what you have now 10 or 15 years from now. Obviously, that could be a little bit dated, and we might have to do some more or renew some origin stories on the folks that are still alive. So we'll hold that off for now. But really looking forward to doing the second week here in October of Origin Stories with Meathead. So format is changing a little bit. I mean, we're still doing the segments and still going to be Meathead, but I am also allotting for time into the second hour because we are literally starting from the beginning. So I don't want to rush through it. That's why we want we fit Malcolm in an hour because he was fairly succinct in how he was answering the questions. It just fit within the hour. Sam went an hour and a half. I'm not putting any real time constraints on Meathead, so we're going to do first hour, and then if it breaches over into the second hour or most of the second hour, that's fine. I do have a 35 past the second hour guest for the bullpen segment. His name is AJ Lujan. He is a competitive steak cook. He is 15 years old. If the last name sounds familiar, it's because he is a son to one, the Anthony Lujan, who was a co-host of the Pitmasters podcast. So looking forward to doing a special show yet again, Meathead's origin story, which I've been looking forward to ever since I came up with this concept. Don't forget, you can follow me socially at the following platforms: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Snapchat. All of those can be found at BBQ Central Show. You can get me on Facebook and Twitch /BBQ Central Show. Also, back on YouTube Live this week. I got that figured out. /RD Rempe is the place to find me on YouTube. And oh, by the way, there is a super chat available. So please go ahead and super chat me $200, $300, $500. I'll take all the money. No problem there. So if you're wondering what those little things, something to do with stickers, something to do with super chat, I have no idea exactly what that entails, but I'm wondering if you super chat me, that basically means you have to pay some kind of money, and then your particular post will stay up for a corresponding period of time. I think $500 gets you 5 hours or something, ridiculous. So I'm just wondering if it actually shows up on the social media feed that I have where I'm watching your interaction with each other here through YouTube and Facebook, Twitch as well. So we'll see how that works out. First off, ton of great feedback on the first set of origin stories I did last week with Malcolm and Sam. The common theme was that while you already knew some stuff about each of these guys, there was plenty that you didn't know about them. And getting to know a little bit more intimate details for these guys gives you a deeper appreciation for them, gets you more connected to them, bigger fans of them. Same for me, by the way. So glad you're liking that first set. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, looking forward to getting down with Meathead in about 5 minutes from now. Also, I got a lot of this reaction as well that I wasn't anticipating, and I'm paraphrasing. This doesn't have anything to do with the origin stories per se. It said something along the lines of, Greg, you're doing a month of origin stories on regular guests. This might be the perfect time to give us the origin stories on why you hate Jack Nicklaus and Kent Osormo. And as the 15th and the 20th email that was roughly referencing the same type of idea, I thought to myself, is there an origin story for my hatred of the Golden Bear and one of the most successful horse jockeys ever? I mean, I'm not talking Mike Smith successful, but successful enough for me to know who he is in a lineup. And I thought, how long could that story really be? It would go along this kind of a timeline. Jack Nicklaus is born. At some point in his life, becomes a raging asshole. And then I meet him, and he continues to be a raging asshole. The end. That's his origin story right there, Jack Nicklaus. Now, Kent Osormo's might be a little different. Very similar, but perhaps a little different in this way. Kent Osormo is born, probably illegitimately. Kent Osormo, at some point after being born, also becomes a raging asshole. However, also becomes a belligerent drunk. Then I meet him. He still is a incredible asshole. And I would have to believe a belligerent drunk. And then the story goes to the end. The end. That's Kent Osormo's origin story. That's it. I don't know what else. Honestly, there is more of a backstory to Jack Nicklaus. And I just don't want to get into it with you guys about what. I don't want to ruin the facade of what a great guy Jack Nicklaus is when he's a golden asshole is what he is. I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but I'm telling you I have firsthand experience on what a hole this guy is. Someday I'll probably share it. Maybe if we drop out of a segment or something doesn't go right and I need to fill time, because I will need definitely at least a whole long segment to fill you in on the whole backstory of the Golden Bear. Just don't think he's that great of a guy. And the thing that really pisses me off, I didn't even really know who the hell he was. I wasn't even his fan. That's all I'm saying for now. Wait until the segment pops. We got Meathead coming up out of the break for his origin story. I'll talk to you quickly about Southside Market Barbecue. Established in 1882, Southside Market, the oldest barbecue joint in Texas. They've been owned and operated by the same family for 3 generations, offering premium Central Texas barbecue products, slow smoked over real wood, shipping, distributing, manufacturing sausages for companies across the U.S., from food trucks to multi-chain restaurants. Southside sausage can be on your menu as well. All meats processed in the on-site USDA-inspected facility. A trusted partner with a focus on quality and authenticity. Wholesale options are available, shipping nationwide via FedEx. You can also find them through food service distribution channels like Sysco, U.S. Foods, and Martin Foods. Co-packaging capable from research and development to package completion. They can follow your specific recipe or help you develop something brand new from scratch. Private label opportunities are also available. You might want to look into those if you already have a place going and you want successful sausage, but you just want to put your name on it. You don't want any other backbreaking work that goes into recipe development. That's private label. Visit SouthsideMarket.com for more information on everything. While you're there loading up the cart and you want to save 10%, use promo code BBQ Central at checkout. That's BBQ CENTRAL, all one word in lowercase, BBQ Central. And that gets you 10% off your entire order when you're at SouthsideMarket.com. Sausage slammers, check. Jalapeno cheddar sausage, check. Hot guts, yes. Sausage slammers, did I already say that? They're one of my favorites. The onion sausage, an incredible sausage array, number one. And then the meats, briskets and ribs, all shipping to you right now. This time of coronavirus, you need some really good Southside Market and barbecue because you don't want to go eat in Elgin or Austin or Bastrop. That's fine. They'll ship it to you. And you can save 10% when you use promo code BBQ Central. Meathead's origin story. Oh my. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting live from the BBQ Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by Butcher's Barbecue, makers of award-winning injections, marinades, rubs, and seasonings, barbecue sauces, grilling oils. All of Butcher Barbecue products tested on the competition circuit, as well as backyards worldwide. Be the pitmaster of your neighborhood and visit butcherbbq.com to stock up now. Always trust your butcher, right? We're always trusting our butcher on this show. Long-time sponsor. We certainly appreciate it. All right, because he was giving me the what for last time, here we go. Joining me for his traditional second Tuesday of the month spot, it is Meathead right here. Hey, Meathead. What do we think?
Hello, Greg, and hello, Centralite.
All right. Got your...
you got me nervous over tonight, Greg. I got to tell you.
Oh, what are you talking about? I mean, you've lived this life, Meathead, so it's not like we're going to be poking anything out of the ordinary, right?
Yeah.
Are you growing your hair back?
It's a little bit. I just don't. I did the buzz cut, and now I haven't done it since. So I'll probably do a buzz cut again.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. I get it. Trust me. I'm fighting with my hair every single day.
When I was in high school, I had a flat top. I had a flat, put wax in it.
Oh, yes, the wax.
Oh, yeah. I was a football player and a swimmer.
Hold on. Wait a second. We're going, let's dive headlong into this, and I have allotted for, a bunch of extra time just in case, because I don't want to rush through it. I want to get through these things properly and as organically as we can. So let's roll it all the way to the back. Here he is, Meathead. When were you born?
Oh, it was a dark and stormy night.
Always.
1949.
All right.
A great vintage in Bordeaux and Burgundy.
Really?
4 years after the war. My dad came home from the war. He flew B-29s.
Wow.
Met my mom. He was lifeguarding, and she was hanging around the beach, Jones Beach in Long Island. And they married at the Waldorf Astoria, I think, in New York. I'm looking. I got a picture of the two of them at their wedding right there. Dad wearing a top hat. Mom, beautiful. Dad's gone now. Mom's still with us, 95 years old.
Wow, I was talking with Sam, the cooking guy, last week. His dad has passed away as well, and but his mom is still around 96 years old. So, we got some hangers-oners there for you guys.
They could probably arm wrestle. Mine is a pistol, I'll tell you.
Through the course, Meathead, did your parents stay together, or how did that work out?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. She was by his side when he died. And it was a good marriage, as near as I could tell. I like everybody else. There was occasional fights, but usually the fights were with me.
So were you only child, or were there other siblings in the house?
No, I got a kid sister. She's 5 years younger. Lives in Pompano Beach, not far from Mom. And we're both University of Florida Gators.
How would you characterize your relationship with your parents? We don't have to, just as a kid. We'll get into the education and stuff here in a moment, and how that is, that relationship grew.
I was always encouraged at the dinner table to participate in conversation, like an adult. I was never shut down, but it was fairly strict. I had some pretty strict regulations around me. One of the coolest things was, as I look back, when I got in really bad trouble, Dad wouldn't whoop me. I had a pair of boxing gloves, and so did he. And my bed was in the corner, and we'd both lace up, and at least I could swing back. I could fight back. But, of course, he beat the snot out of me. And that was how he whooped me.
Do you think he was full tilt? Was he going full tilt at you, or just trying to give you a lesson?
I doubt it. It was just, but, get ready for a beating, son.
Meathead joining us here on the show. All right, so how do you recall, or prior to starting school, how would you characterize yourself as a kid? Were you curious? Were you into stuff? What were you as a youth?
Yeah, I was. I lived the first 9 years on Long Island, but the really formative years were in Florida. It was rural then. It was not heavily populated. I spent a lot of time down by the creek, fishing for minnows and pollywogs, and hunting snakes, and building forts with my buddies. And there was a recreation center. I was a swimmer. I swam a lot, and I actually competed at a very high level on AAU. Spent a lot of time down at the pool, and played high school football. That brings back a memory. I was part of the Ringling Redskins, and I don't know if anybody keeps these records, but I'm pretty sure the Redskins were like the first Pee-wee football league in the country. We were like 10 or 12 years old or something. We had full pads, and Ringling, named after the Ringling brothers. This was Sarasota, Florida, which is where the Ringling Mansion is. The Ringling brother, John Ringling, lived there.
I think there's a university out there in Sarasota now too, isn't there?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And so there was so I was, I was in a sport. I had a flat stomach.
How do you go from Long Island to Florida? Was there a job move or something?
Yeah, Dad was a food technology major. Bloodline.
Yeah.
At NYU. Came back from the war. Got into college on the GI Bill. He and his cousin, my Uncle Buddy, both went to NYU in food technology. They opened up a butcher shop, Bloodlines, on Long Island, and it wasn't successful. He got a job with USDA. He was a inspector. They first sent him to the coast of Maine, a little town called Bayside near Belfast on Penobscot Bay. I'll never forget, I was 9-10 years old. It was the most idyllic summer you could imagine. Cold water, but swimming, seafood. And I got a job working in the kitchen at the Maine Sailing School. This was a sailing school for kids. They would come up from the cities and spend the summer on Bayside and learn how to sail. And I got sailing lessons in exchange for working in the kitchen. And I guess that was my first real exposure to cooking and to food. Although Dad was a great lover of barbecue and grilling, he had something akin to a Weber kettle, and his specialty was flank steak. And I fell in love with it, and he'd let me hang out by the grill with him. And that was probably where I got the first injection of grilling and barbecue. Now, I hope my mom's not listening, but he might have let me have a little sip of beer along the way, and that might have influenced me.
Yeah.
But those flank steaks, Mom was a good cook. She's nothing fantastic. But Dad's flank steaks, oh my, I love those things. Well, anybody out there knows. Flank steaks, if you cook it right, you get that hard crust, you get that soft, tender center. It's a little chewy, but if you cut it right, it's so beefy. And I just fell in love with it, man. I loved grilling.
So that's probably where some of the live fire foundations are laid as a youth.
Oh, yeah. That was first.
Yeah. What do you recall from primary education years? Like, was school something that's easy for you as you're getting through elementary, middle school, high school? What kind of a student are you, and what are you into?
I was a pretty good student. We moved around a little bit as Dad was with the government. The blueberry factory shut down after the blueberry season in Maine to inspect blueberry factory and not a blueberry, orange juice factory, Tropicana factory in Bradenton, Florida. Mm-hmm. So we lived in Sarasota, and this was 1959, I think. Moved to Sarasota, and I was a pretty good student. I didn't have to study a lot and got pretty good grades. I enjoyed school. I mean, it was, stimulation.
You had mentioned that you were also a football player and a swimmer. Were you most competitive then at this point, or did you go in and swim or play football at the next level?
I was undersized for a football player, but I loved it, and I just loved throwing my body. In high school, later on, we moved across the state to Merritt Island, which was this was at the start of the space program. Dad left the USDA and took a job with a stock brokerage, and they sent him to Cocoa, Florida in 1960, which I think it was 58 or 59 when the Russians launched Sputnik, and we started the space program right around that time, and with the Vanguard, and all of the engineers, the scientists, the bestest and brightest from Boeing and Northrop and Bell, they all moved into this uninhabited little fishing area, Cocoa Beach, Merritt Island, Melbourne, and what later became Satellite Beach, named after the missile program. And the brand new junior high opened up, or high school, Merritt Island High School. And I was both on the swimming team and the football team.
What was the food scene like for you growing up? Otherwise, you'd mentioned your dad's steak. You said your mom was okay cook. It didn't sound like she was necessarily setting the kitchen on fire in a good way. But were there any were there any secret family recipes or like grandparents that came around or anything like that?
I remember Mom's lasagna. But we were in the coast. We were in Florida. I ate seafood. Dad and I were into fishing, and at one point we moved into a house that was right on the Intercoastal Waterway. So I could walk out in my backyard, stand on the seawall, take a piece of kite string and tie a chicken neck to it, throw it out into the water, and in a few minutes I could feel tugging on it and pull it in, and I've had crabs. And I would just, scoop them up in a net, and it was a pain in the ass getting them out of the net, and then throw them up on the lawn, and I could get a dozen of them in an hour easily, and we just boil them up. And Dad always had a boat. As long as I can remember, he had a boat, little runabout. Eventually, he got a Chris Craft, something we could all sleep in, and we'd go out off into the Atlantic, into the Gulf Stream, and fish, and come home. Gosh, I have a picture. I didn't think to bring it up of me holding up a mahi-mahi, like a 60-pound fish.
Wow.
And those were wonderful. So if I stayed on the coast, I'd be Fishhead, not Meathead.
Is the crab illegal to catch like that back then, or no?
I don't think there was anything illegal about it. I mean, this was rural Florida. Yeah. I don't know if there were, any legal restrictions or anything. Yeah, we'd boil up crabs. They were fantastic. It's probably still legal.
Were you employable back then through high school? Did you have any odd jobs?
Well, here we go. This is the good story. This is through high school and college. I took a job as the lifeguard at the Sheraton Hotel on Cocoa Beach. And very soon after the space program began, the 7 original astronauts, and I can name them all. I knew them all. They all moved down there, and they bought a part of the Sheraton Hotel. They were my bosses. And I would hang out at the Sheraton, at the pool, and they'd come around, hanging around, sniffing around, looking at the pretty girls. Alan Shepard was the hound dog, and Disney is running a remake of the movie The Right Stuff and the book The Right Stuff, and it's been Hollywoodized, but there's a lot of truth, and they show Shepard for what he was. He was constantly chasing women. There was a bar there, and they were just, hey, honey, I'm an astronaut.
Does that work?
Oh my God. Did that work? They owned a hotel, so they had their choice of rooms. And
oh my.
I don't recall that John Glenn was ever involved. He's got a reputation as a straight arrow and a Bible thumper, and I don't think he was a chaser. But most of the rest of them were. They were family men. Their spouses moved down there with them eventually. But they were, these were guys who were test pilots, man. Look in 1960, John Kennedy threw down the gauntlet and said, I want to put a man on the moon in 10 years. And they did it. Think about that. They didn't have, these things, this little iPhone here has got more computing power than they put on those spaceships. And they did it. They started with the Redstone rocket and the Mercury capsule and the Atlas Centaur and the Gemini capsule, the Titan 3C, and then finally the Saturn V. I knew them all, and I knew the photographer for the Associated Press turned one of the rooms at the Sheraton into a dark room, and he'd let me come up there and help him develop film. So that was I was always interested in photography, and that was my first exposure to color work. And can you imagine? This was exciting stuff, especially for a 18, 19-year-old kid, being around these studs and the space program and all these engineers. These were young, bright, talented people. And that whole area, the Space Coast, they call it now, it just grew up overnight. And think about this. They started with almost nothing, and they put a man on the moon in 10 years. Wow. Just incredible, without any of the computing power that we have today. It was really fun stuff.
No doubt. Sounds like a great time and inspirational to you as well. Were there other jobs, or was there no reason to have any other job than stay at that Sheraton? It sounds like that would be the only place I'd stay.
A lifeguard. I was a good swimmer. I made it to the state meet in Florida. That's not small potatoes. I was a breaststroker, a good breaststroker. I was a mediocre butterflyer, and didn't have all this hair on my chest. And my Mary Island High School had a very advanced science program. It was underwritten by the big corporations, and I got into one of the advanced science classes. In fact, my junior year, my science project went all the way to the state fair. I was growing chlorella, which is a type of algae, in fish tanks, and I was working with ways to optimize its growth with the idea that space travel to Mars, they could grow these little algae in tanks and harvest it and make food out of it. And I made cookies, chocolate chip cookies out of them. And that was one of my first recipes ever, chlorella chocolate chip cookies. They were awful. But I won an award from NASA for aerospace science research in high school. But thank God they never tasted my cookies.
Yeah, I was going to say, did somebody have to taste that at some point in order to give you an award?
You would think, but I had a great poster, and as you may know, I had the gift of gab, and I could sell the concept.
So what was going to be the use to eat?
Yeah, well, the whole idea was, if we're going into space, we got to go to Mars. Yeah. We got to go far. And, you can't put, pack sandwiches in a so you got to grow food. And so this was an idea of chlorella, the algae. They reproduce fast. They really grow fast. And so the idea, if we can use this little microbe, not a microbe, small plant for food, that'd be cool. I don't think that's ever got a future.
No, that's all right. You never know. When the chips are down, we can always go back to growing chlorella or whatever the hell.
Chlorella, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
All right, Meathead. So stand by here just for a second. We'll come back. We'll get into the college and early job years and take it from there. You're listening to the origin story of Meathead from AmazingRibs.com. I'll talk to you quickly about Pits and Spits, and then we'll get right back to Meathead. Since 1983, Pits and Spits has been handcrafting smokers and grills in Houston, Texas. Within that time, they have established themselves as one of the premier brands in high-quality offset smokers and more recently pellet cookers. Pits and Spits sets itself apart by using heavy 7 and 10-gauge steel in every cooker, fully welded construction that you can feel when you use the unit, and 304 stainless steel roll-top lids and front shelves on every single cooker. Why does it matter? Well, by using higher quality materials, Pits and Spits smokers reach and maintain temperatures, allowing you to worry more about the meat than the heat. And by providing fully welded smokers, you don't have to worry about grease or smoke leaking out of the barrel or about the grill rattling apart as you move it through the backyard. And by using 304 stainless, you're getting an heirloom quality product that you'll be able to pass down to your kids. Now, where some companies are focusing on the low-cost provider, Pits and Spits focuses on craftsmanship using quality materials. Are there cheaper ways to make these things? Sure. But they don't like making tack welds, cheap stainless, or electronics that you can't trust. Having in-house manufacturing gives them complete control of the design and standards. That's not something you're going to find from something that's brought in overseas. Their steel suppliers supply materials to be used in some of the harshest environments around, so you know they're going to perform wherever you live. And they have unimpeded access to their controllers because they're made right here in the USA. Pits and Spits has a dealer network across the country, but if there isn't one close to you, go ahead and call Coy at the shop, 844-650-6250. That's 844-650-6250. Whether you're a backyard grill master looking to cook steaks for the family or a competition team looking to do 50 racks of ribs, Pit and Spits is a product for you. You can check them out online, Pits and Spits, all spelled out. Or you can check them out in the wild across all their social media handles at Pits and Spits. We are back with more Meathead. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the BBQ Central Show.
And this portion brought to you by CookinPellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets for all your pellet-driven cookers. Visit CookinPellets.com. That's COOKIN. CookinPellets.com for more information or to purchase. In lieu of purchasing from Cookin Pellets, you can also do that on Amazon.com. I was keeping an eye out to see if they were on Prime Days, Cookin Pellets, but they were not on Prime Days. Maybe tomorrow. We'll have to check for tomorrow. All right, we are rejoined by Meathead from AmazingRibs.com as we were getting through the high school, learning about how he was best buddies with the original 7 astronauts out there in Florida as he was lifeguarding them. So we get into college, Meathead. Florida Gator, tried and true, as you said. Very proud of that. What did you go in for? And perhaps the question of generations is, what did you go into study and what did you end up graduating with? Because there does seem to be quite a change that happens within those 4+ years.
Yeah, there's a story behind that too. Yeah. Well, I was going to be a doctor. I had good grades, and I thought I'd be a doctor.
Any specific doctor, like a anesthesiologist, cardiovascular, general doctor?
My parents says, go be a doctor. So, I went right out of high school. I graduated in May or June and registered right away. Went to Gainesville in the June and started the summer semester. I couldn't wait and got straight A's summer semester, first semester in college. This was easy. I thought, holy cow, I'm going to breeze through college just like I did high school. Don't have to study or anything. And then pledged fraternity. You know what's coming, don't you?
Oh, boy.
I pledged fraternity in the fall. I'm a Phi Gamma Delta, Fiji. And started partying. This was the 60s. The old joke about if you remember the 60s, you weren't there.
Yeah.
But he was smoking dope, and we were drinking, and we were partying, and by end of spring semester, I had flunked out. I went from I got straight A's my first semester. I was elected president of the Freshman Honorary Society, which was an academic honorary, and I probably the first president of Phi Eta Sigma, I think it was called, that ever flunked out. And I was facing the draft. I was number 20 in the draft. Back in those days, we were at war in Vietnam, and they were drafting young men, and to draft, to decide who to draft, they threw your birth date in a hat and pulled it out, and you were assigned a number. And if you were a high number, or a low number rather, you were dead meat. You were going to Vietnam. And I was number 20. I think anything under 200 was going to be drafted.
Yeah.
But University of Florida was a land grant college, which meant federal government granted the land. And so everybody there was required to take ROTC for 2 years. So I was in ROTC, and I kind of liked it. I liked the military aspects, and I liked the idea of a good, strong army, and I liked firing weapons, and I liked they would drop us off in swamps with compasses and tell us to find our way out. And this was fun stuff, and I decided I'd just stick it out, and so after the 2 years, I continued. They paid me, which was nice.
Right.
That was beer money. But I faced the prospect of when I graduated, I was going to be commissioned to second lieutenant. By then, the war was starting to wind down in the late 60s and early 70s, and I had some real misgivings about what the heck are we doing over there. Muhammad Ali said it. I got nothing against no Vietnamese, and here I am wearing a uniform, and so I started a routine of dropping in and out of college. I'd drop out, and then I was out of ROTC, and then I'd go back, and then I was and I loved it. I went to summer camp. I fought the Fayette Kong, they call them, in Fayetteville, North Carolina, at our ROTC summer camp. We spent summer camp, the college kids fighting against the 82nd Airborne. Oh my God. Eventually the draft ended, and I didn't end up going into the military, and it's probably just as well. There were a lot of ROTC graduates who came in as second lieutenants and were disrespected by the foot soldiers, the GIs, the kids who were drafted. A lot of them inner city kids, and oh golly, sometimes they got shot, and oftentimes the bullet hole was in the back.
Wow.
And that probably would have been my fate. College kid with a degree and a lieutenant leading men who knew war far better than I would have.
So you're getting through college. How long does it end up taking you if you're joining and dropping and joining and dropping? Well,
I switched from pre-med to journalism, and that was a good move because I love to write, and I did great. I mean, I was an editor at the campus paper, the Florida Alligator. We won the Hearst Award for the nation's best college daily. I was the sports editor at one time. I went out for the University of Florida football team in the spring to write. At the time, there was a best-selling novel called Paper Tiger, and it was written by George Plimpton. And he was a very good author, but his specialty was he would not just write about something, he would do it. And so, he did skydiving, and he went out for the Detroit Tigers. Paper Lion was the book, Paper Lion. And he went out for the Detroit Lions. Oof. And he suited up and practiced with him and got his ass creamed. So I figured, hey, I'm going to be Paper Gator. And I did the same thing. And they gave me the locker next to Jack Youngblood. Now, I don't know if anybody knows that name. But Jack Youngblood was All-American, made it All-Pro with the LA Rams. He's in the Hall of Fame. Jack was 6'7". I was 5'9". Closer to 5'8". And I had played linebacker in high school, but, way too small for that in college. So they put me in the as a safety. And I was there just to write the story, to learn about what it felt like to be a college football player. In spring training, they put me at safety, and we'd go out, and when we'd stand around the defensive huddles, Youngblood rests his elbow on my helmet, But he was
a foot
protector,
taller than you, for crying out loud.
Yeah, easily. In the orange and blue game, the spring game, I'm sitting on the bench with a clipboard taking notes right from my article, because this is the end, the end of the article, the end of spring training, and I got to wrap this thing up. And the last play of the game, coach turns around and yells, "Paper Gator, get your helmet on." Now, this was not in the program. And they send me out on the field. It took me a minute to find my helmet. They send me out on the field, and I get to the huddle, and there's two safeties in the huddle, and I'm supposed to be a safety. No, you're middle linebacker, middle linebacker. What? I've been practicing in safety. Just get down there, man. All right, well, I know how to play linebacker. I line up. And, they used to play 5-3, but now they were in a 4-3. Well, 5-3, there's a man on the center. 4-3, there's nobody on the center, and the center has a clear shot at the middle linebacker. And the ball is snapped, and I realized, what's happening. There's a target on my chest. So I dove for the ground, just, like a rabbit heading for a rabbit hole. And the center tripped over me. The fullback tripped over the center, and the running back got his leg hooked around the fullback. And there's a picture of it. There's actually a photograph of this that ran in the Associated Press because I wrote this story and it was picked up by AP. And I tackled the running back. Essentially, he tripped. But my record in the swamp is 1 play, 1 tackle, 1 yard loss.
Wow.
Match that.
No doubt. Get that guy into the College Football Hall of Fame immediately. Plus, he can write, for crying out loud. Probably 85% of those guys were reading that and loving every second of it.
I got a lot of flack off of that one.
Oh, I bet. All right, so as you're winding college down, are you graduating with a journalism degree or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually what happened is I because of ROTC, the draft, and a million other things, I got really into photography. And the University of Florida had a really great photography department headed by a man named Jerry Uelsman. And if you're at all interested in photography, if you don't know the name, go Google him, Uelsmann. His work is just marvelous. And Jerry took me under his wing, and I remember sitting on the lawn with him one day looking at a portfolio of Edward Weston photographs that he had gotten because he traded a portfolio of his photographs. And so I got really into photography, and I got a one-man show. Actually, it was a two-man show. My best friend and I got a two-man show in this little artsy village on the west coast of Florida, north of St. Petersburg, and Safety Harbor, and pretty little beach town. And had a two-man show there. And we worked for months to make the prints for it, and went there, and it was the beginning of my art career. And it turns out the woman who ran the gallery invited me to her house to see her paintings. Her specialty was large canvases that she painted by taking off her clothes and wiggling around on the canvas with paint. Yeah, I won't go any further than that, but it really did spur my interest in art.
Oh yeah, it's spurring my interest as we talk about it.
I never made it back to Gainesville. I just got in the car, and as I was heading back to Gainesville, I picked up a couple of hitchhikers. It was in August, and they were going to Detroit, and they were telling me how they were making a lot of money working on the assembly line. And wow, that's a lot of money. And I was pretty much paying my own way in college. I was at ABC Liquors, a big chain of liquor stores.
Still
that
is,
was a lot of fun. It still is. Yeah, it's huge. Most of the liquor stores have bars attached. And there's a good story here, because this is where the barbecue connection comes in. The liquor store had a bar in the back, and I was the assistant manager of the liquor store. My roommate was the manager. I loved it because I was able to recommend wines to my professors. I got really into wine. My buddies and I were tasting the wines, and I'd start recommending wines to my professors, and then they'd tell me how much they loved it, So I don't know if it ever helped my grades, but I imagined it might.
Couldn't hurt.
But there was this guy who'd come into the bar once a week. Usually I think it was Thursday. And he'd come in with this styrofoam cooler, big cooler. And it was full of ribs wrapped in aluminum foil. And he would sell them to the patrons of the bar. And we'd let him in, we didn't give him any grief. And they smelled so good. And I started buying them and bringing them back to the fraternity house, and then later to the dorm, the apartment where I lived. And we were just enthralled. We'd never tasted anything like this. And it was many years later, that I realized this was Sonny, the guy who started Sonny's Barbecue, restaurant chain in Florida.
Really?
He was cooking these ribs in a concrete backyard pit and selling them in bars in Gainesville, Florida. How about that?
Wow.
So Sonny of Sonny's Barbecue was really who got me started. And now I was on a mission. I wanted more of this stuff, and I wanted to know how you make it. And there was a barbecue joint in town called Y.T. Parker's Barbecue, and it was in the African-American section of town where the college kids never went. And I went down in there, and I would taste all his barbecue. And, I kept asking questions, and he'd let me eventually go out back where he had a pit, actual pit dug in the ground. Now, after the city came down on him, he built a concrete block pit. But I could hang out with him and his buddies and drink beer, and they taught me how to cook. And that's where I learned how to barbecue, from Y.T. Parker, big old heavy cigarette smoking black guy. And the place was like it looked like a chicken coop or something. None of the tables were steady. They all wobbled. And you could buy pulled pork sandwiches. And if you can take the sauce hotter than the hottest one he had, he could amp it up. You could name it. And I remember the last one that I ate was Super Saber Jet.
Wow. That sounds hot.
Yeah, they were hot. I couldn't eat them. But I learned how to barbecue in an open pit, logs. And that was really my start down that path. Dad got me started with his flank steaks for grilling, but for low and slow smoked open pit barbecue, this was old style. Central Florida is more a part of Georgia than it is. People think of Florida, they think of Miami, and Miami is a suburb of New York. Gainesville is a suburb of Detroit, of Georgia, rather. So, in any case, winding back, I pick up these two hitchhikers going to Gainesville, and they're going to Detroit. They're making a lot of money up there, and I figured, if you can make that much, I think it was $3.25 an hour. Holy cow, $3.25 an hour on the assembly line. Pack my bags. I had a little Toyota pickup truck with a camper on the back. So I just drove them all the way to Detroit and went to the Dearborn Recreation Center and parked in the parking lot and slept in my camper, got up in the morning and went into the rec center and showered in the gym. And I lived there for like 3 months in this little pickup truck. Got a job in a liquor store, because when I got there, all of the factories had shut down. I didn't know enough. In those days, all of the automobile factories shut down end of August
for
to
maintenance.
Retool for the new model year.
Right.
The 1971s are done. We got to retool for the 1972s. And so I couldn't get a job in the factory. It was right near the Dearborn plant, too. And I couldn't get a job, so I got a job in a little liquor store. I was really into wine then too, and I helped them create a good selection of wine and beer, and we started a little wine club, and it was very successful.
All right, let me do this, Meathead. I'm going to try and get the clock right here, so then we can head into the second hour and finish out your current life. So stand by just for 1 second, and we'll be right back with Meathead from Amazing Ribs. I'll talk to you quickly about the BBQ Guru, longest-running sponsor of this show. Always believing outdoor cooking should be fun and easy, because it can be, especially with the Monolith BBQ Guru Edition grill and any of the BBQ Guru controllers. Monolith, the world's first temperature-controlled smoker with a built-in power draft fan, meaning smarter control and greater freedom with automatic temperature-control devices. Easily choose your cooking time and temperature. Let the Monolith do the work of a sous chef or a barbecue pitmaster. And with minimal effort, you now have oven-like precision at the grill. You can serve the tastiest, juiciest meals each and every time. And if you already have a BBQ Guru controller, you don't have to get a new one. If you order the Monolith, you just take that controller, hook it up to the power draft fan that's built into it, and away you go. You're off and running. If you don't like ceramic cookers or you want something different, they do have another option. It's called the shotgun cooker. It's more of a cabinet style. Again, huge capacity on this. The burn time with a automatic temperature control device, the insulation that it's in there. I think Bob has said that he's routinely gotten over 24 hours on a single load of charcoal. And again, can accommodate half and full pans. So if you're catering or you're looking to do more than your traditional family amounts, it's something that can absolutely get it done. Again, fully insulated. Give them a call or ask them any questions by visiting the website, bbqguru.com, or as I mentioned, call 800-288-GURU. That's 800-288-GURU. And they will make sure you're outfitted with exactly what you need to get you up and running right out of the box. BBQ Guru, longest running sponsor of the show. And we're back with more Meathead to round out the first hour right after this. Stick around.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the BBQ Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rampey.
And we are brought to you this time around by Fireboard 2 and Fireboard 2 Drive. You can monitor up to 6 different temperatures simultaneously. You can connect to Wi-Fi for cloud-based monitoring, or connect via Bluetooth if you have to. Alexa and Google Assistant compatible as well. So if you have one or both, you can hook them up. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. And we have Meathead aboard here. We got like 3 minutes before we run to the top of the hour here, Meathead. So is there anything collegiately that you want to, or first job-wise, you want to close out on, and then we'll transition into those first writing jobs and all that good stuff here in the second hour?
I just, during these breaks, memories flow back. While I was at the Florida Alligator, the campus paper, I went to Daytona and Sebring and photographed and covered the races. Those were the races that were featured. I can't remember the name of the movie. It just came out a year or two ago about all these great sports car racers at Le Mans and Sebring and Daytona. And I watched all of that. Roger Penske, all those guys driving. I got press passes. I was in the pit. It was unbelievable watching those races. And I also went to the Palm Beach Rock Festival, which was sort of a dry run before Woodstock. It was about 2 or 3 weeks before Woodstock, and they were all there. Hendrix, Joplin, and I had backstage pass. I was a writer and a photographer. Just breathtaking moments in history.
All right, we are chatting with Meathead. We're going to run through the second hour, and we will come back, and we will be told a love story, amongst other things. So stick around. And well, I'm hoping so. I've built up a love story that's going to be happening here at some point. So you can find Meathead, of course, at AmazingRibs.com and the second Tuesday of the month right here on this show. So stick around for the second hour. We will be right back.